I want you guys to know, hello, welcome, welcome, that well, first of all, I guess I should say, since I'm not being introduced, and that's okay, does anybody feel like they need me to introduce myself? Because I will. If you're like, I don't really know who you are, I wouldn't mind having some background. Okay, perfect. So, because I'm totally fine with skipping. What'd you say, Josh?
For the video.
For the video, that's right. Okay, my name's Amy Muller. I'll give you as brief background as I can to make it relevant to what we're talking about today. So I started selling Cutco when I was in college as a sophomore. I sold Cutco all through college, and then I ran a branch office the summer I graduated college, and then I ran a district office for like 6 years, and then I worked at our region office for like 6 years. At the region, I was really mostly involved in helping train new managers, working with our FSM and CSP elite groups, and then just generally being the right hand to our region manager and helping with whatever he needed help with, right? So I was with Cutco, like to date, I've been with Cutco for 29 years. It's been a very long time. And as a manager, I sold about 3 million. As a rep, back then, much different. We weren't selling millions a year back then as a rep. So I only sold like 150 grand as a rep. But I did graduate college debt-free, no loans, all A's with my Cutco income, right? That was fantastic. My degree's in marketing. So here's what happened. When I left the region after all those years of being with Cutco, it was basically to write a book and speak professionally because that was my favorite thing to do. And I did that for a while, speaking at colleges and things like that. But I started, like I've always supported Josh Muller's business. I don't know if you guys know who Josh Muller is. He sold $1 million last year. He's on the screen. Josh Muller, over $1 million last year alone. So I've always supported Josh's business on the back end. So like his marketing, his administrative support, running his team of assistants, that kind of stuff. And so for years, I would go to our division and region and national events, and I would teach those things, how to get repeat business from your client list. And for years, reps would always say to me, that's really great. I love that information, but can you just do it for me? I don't want to do it myself, right? And for years, I was like, no, that's not really something that I do, right? I just help Josh's business. But it just kept coming up again and again and again for years. And so I started just being like, well, just send me your stuff, and I'll just look at it and give you feedback. I won't charge you anything. I'm happy to help, like whatever. But then people would send me their stuff, and I'd be like, oh, this is really bad. So I felt bad, because like they were paying for something to be done by somebody else that was not good, right? So I felt bad for the Cutco customers getting that marketing. I felt bad for the reps who were paying for that marketing. So that's when really Josh and I sat down and went, okay, it looks like we just really need to help people with this, right? If we're gonna help their businesses. So that's when we opened Vast Action, right? It started as a marketing company to help reps. But then all the reps were, at the time we were all using the same database because we hadn't built Vast Action CRM yet. We were all using a different database. And the reps really wanted it to be more specific to Cutco. They wanted that database to build it more specific to Cutco. But that database supports many, many hundreds of businesses. So they were like, we're not gonna do that, right? We're not gonna make our database support just Cutco when we actually support many businesses. So that's when I basically interviewed a bunch of the top CSPs at the time of what they wanted in a database, put together the specs, right? Gave it back to the programmer, and he was like, I can totally build that, but I'm not gonna build it for free because it's like 30 grand to do so, and so I'm just not gonna do that. And so that's when I was like, well, the system would be really cool, I think, so what if I fund it, you can build it, then just charge a sign-up fee, pay me back, and eventually I'll be paid back, right? That was my thought. He was like, cool, let's do that. So that's where it all started. So basically, I have a marketing degree. My whole business right now is basically supporting Cutco reps and other businesses in marketing and CRM, client relationship management, data, that kind of stuff, right? And I've been to multiple seminars about marketing outside of Cutco, by the way, too, just to try to know what's going on in the industry and know what the best practices are and all that kind of stuff. So I feel pretty qualified to help. At this point, this is stuff I'm gonna share with you guys today is all stuff I've either learned, right, from all of those things, or just because of all the stuff we've done for so many CSPs for years now, because we've been doing this now for 10 years. 2014 is when we built the CRM. 2013 is when we started doing marketing. So about 10 years now. So I'm just coming basically with best practices, things I see that are common across the board with top reps who are getting great results. So that's what I'm gonna share with you guys. Now, to be completely honest, I came with stuff that if none of you wanted to ask a single question, I could just give you the list of best practices, right? I can do that, I can just speak. But I really thought it might be more beneficial for you guys if instead of me deciding where the content goes, because there's a lot of different facets of marketing we could talk about, if you guys want to give me your questions first, then I will be happy to mostly form what we talk about to answer your questions. Because I really want it to be as helpful for you guys as possible. And we could go in a lot of different directions, right? I put numbers up on the board. These are just, the reason they're not exact numbers is because I just reached out to all these CSPs to say, hey, just give me an idea of where you're at numbers-wise for the year, because I want to be able to show people, sorry, Josh. I want to be able to show people examples of if you do the right things, right? If your goal, let me rephrase that. You don't have to ever do any marketing, ever. You don't have to. But if your goal is to get to a point where your current client list supports a lot of the goals you want to achieve with sales, then yes, you're going to have to do some marketing, okay? So these are just examples of if you're looking at this going, oh my gosh, not only did this guy sell 1.5 million in a year, but over 1 million of that was repeat business from his current client list. How crazy is that, you guys? $1 million a year in just repeat sales from his client list. And that's the biggest number on there because he's got the overall biggest number, but even Dawid, 800 grand of his sales, of his 1.1 million were repeat business. Josh, 740. I mean, these are some big percentages, right? Even if you guys think about right now how much you sold last year and then ask yourself, if I could get my current client list to even be an extra 20% above that, what does that do for my goals, right? 20% is a low number. Right? So this is meant to just inspire you that yes, if you want to do some of these things, then your client list can really be very useful in your overall sales total, for sure. Okay, so let's start with just a fire round of questions. When you guys think of marketing, if you're here in this room, so you obviously have some question. When you're thinking of marketing and you're like, either here are the questions I have about it, or here's, a question I have of something that happened and I'm just wondering how to handle it, whatever. I'm going to just write down your questions, and then we're going to jump in with the content. So feel free to just shout out a question or raise a hand or whatever you want to do. And tell us your name, by the way, too, when you ask a question. Anybody have a question in mind? Yes?
Tim, what career sales should you start email marketing to?
Oh, good question. So Tim's thing is, what career sales does all this stuff start at? I'm going to answer that, but first I'm going to get a bunch more questions. Great question, Tim. Okay, does anybody else have a question about marketing? Or a topic you want to talk about. It doesn't have to be a specific question. Josh?
Yeah, so my name's Josh, and one of my questions is like when you have let's say you have a new customer, like what is your system from hey, all right, I just acquired them, step 1, I'm gonna do this,
yep.
Step 2, step 3, to funnel that relationship, and same thing with is it different with a Cutco owner that's new to you?
Right.
And then also,
owner versus brand new person.
BizGift clients as well.
Okay.
Almost like a onboarding process
Yep.
for your customers.
Exactly. Great question. Onboarding process for customers. Do you guys want me to tell you what all the topics where I came prepared to share so you could tell me if you have questions within those topics? So here are the notes I have written down. I've got marketing best practices. That's probably the thing that I think would be the coolest to go through first if we're going to go through that. How to segment your list in different ways, the different channels for marketing, some stats you should expect when it comes to marketing, common marketing pieces used in Cutco by CSPs, and how to do marketing planning. What do you guys think of those topics? You like them? Okay.
Yeah.
So since there's not a lot of questions coming in right now, why don't I just start going through these things, and as we go, if you guys have questions, just stop me. Does that sound fair to everybody? Okay. Because that way, at least, no matter what, even if you don't know what questions you have yet, you will leave some good information. Okay, let's start with the first two you guys just asked, though, because I don't want to ignore those. So Tim, to answer your question, when should you start? It kind of depends on what your goals are, right? Here are my two answers to that question. One is if you're concerned most about profitability, then you don't want to start until your client list is a certain size so that if you're getting average conversion rates, you're actually profiting from it, right? So that's one answer. And if that's the case, then usually we find that as long as someone has at least 200 or 300 customers on their list, it can be profitable. But they have to also be mindful of how much money they're spending, right? There are things you can do to make sure that you're getting the best deals for what you want to do so that you're profitable even if you have a smaller list. But I will tell you, the year Brandon Wynn started with the CRM was the year he won the Silver Cup. He came to us in the fall. He only had 300 people on his client list. He was going for silver at the time in his category, and he had never done any marketing yet. And to his credit, when he came to me, and so many people do, he came to me and said, can you please send out a sale email for me? I'm trying to win the Silver Cup. And I was like, I definitely could, Mike, I could do that. But I was like, but that is not generally how it works best. Generally how it works best is to provide value and value and value and then make an offer, right? So it's not all about the sale, it's about providing value. And he was cool enough to be on board that it's like, cool, I trust you. He's like, let's do it. So then we set up his fall to be value, value, value offer, right? And then he did end up winning the silver cup by like $150. Poor Sharissa, I think it was number 2 that year. But it worked, right? So the point is, you don't have to have a massive client list for the marketing to make a difference for you, right? He believes it helped him win the silver cup that year because I think he sold like $8,000 extra from the marketing, right? That he probably wouldn't have sold otherwise. So that's great. So that's one answer. Answer number 2 is if profitability isn't your main concern. Like if someone wanted to start from the beginning, just to be like, even if someone only had 100 customers or whatever, but they were like, I just want to get people trained from the start on like how we're going to communicate over time, right? Then that would be the optimal answer if money's not an object, right? And you can afford to put some effort or time into marketing. It's worth it just to get them started off the right way. Because one thing I will tell you that every CSP basically says is, I wish I had started sooner. That is the most common thing I hear is CSPs that are like, oh, and some of us are so old, right, that we didn't even have emails back in the day, so we couldn't have totally started everything sooner. We could have started a lot of the things we do sooner, even if it wasn't email marketing. And a lot of our client lists who are sort of like, I don't want to call them dead, but they're definitely like not super interactive. We don't have current information because they're so old because we didn't do this stuff from the beginning, right? We've basically lost them. It'd be awesome if we could have gone back to the beginning and know what we know now and kept all of those customers active and engaged, yeah? So starting as soon as possible is my recommendation. I'm going to answer your question, Josh, but I'm going to wait, okay? I'm going to go through some of the notes first, and then we'll come back and answer because some of my notes have to do with what you asked about. Okay, so let me give you some basics. I went and got some definitions for you. Online, marketing. In case you don't know what marketing is the activities a company undertakes to promote the buying of their product or service. Just take the word company and make it you, right? The activities that you undertake to promote your product or service. The goals of marketing are 3 things, really. One is client acquisition, which we don't usually use a lot of marketing for that, right, in our business. The second thing is client retention. We definitely use marketing for that. And the third thing is basically that repeat business, right? You want to retain clients, you also want repeat business. So those are the main 3 goals of marketing. And the purpose of marketing is to get people interested in your products or services, okay? To get people interested. And here are the 4 things your strategies need to include for sure. These are things that we don't often talk about, by the way. So those of you that have heard me speak about marketing before, I haven't even shared this. But I'm going to share this because I think it helps you with planning your personal marketing. We can all do similar things, but these things will help you customize it to you. So your strategy should include your value proposition, right? So here's what I want you to think about. You guys all know what that means when it comes to Cutco. Value proposition for Cutco is why it makes sense to spend money on Cutco, right? The value of Cutco. You need to be thinking about what is the value proposition of working with you versus someone else. Why should they get Cutco from you? Not from Costco, not from the other rep they see at the event, not from the Cutco store, not from just going to Cutco.com and buying it, not from just any random person that they run into that sells Cutco. What's the value proposition of why they should buy from you? If you can answer those questions, that will help you tailor your marketing and your strategy. Number 2 on your strategy is your brand message. You have to start thinking about what you want you to stand for, okay? So like when you communicate with people, what do you want them to think about you? That could be different things. For some people, they're the fun guy, right? Like Josh even gets Carlton, does anybody know who Carlton Thompson is? Yep. So, I'm surprised more of you don't, because he's a blast. But Josh gets people that come to the booth who are Carlton's customers who will say to Josh, you're just not as fun as Carlton, right? And he's like, I know. You know, like who is? If you know Carlton, you would know that that totally makes sense. But Josh is like, Josh's brand isn't the fun guy, but Carlton's brand is definitely the fun guy. His customers love that about him, okay? So you had to start thinking about what are the values that you want to stand for? Like, what do you want people to think of when they think of you, okay? So third thing is data on your customers. This one's probably the one most reps really struggling. Keeping data on your customers, more so than just what their email is and what their address is and, you know, how many orders they bought. But if you can keep more data, that's good. When I get into some of the best practices, I want you guys to know that online at least, not so much in Cutco yet because we haven't done as good a job of this as we could have as a company. But online, all the stuff about how marketing is going to be effective moving forward, so much of it is about personalization. They call it dynamic, I forget the second word, dynamic something, but it's like when you can have certain things, for example, even in an email, that change depending on what the data is on that client. Like it automatically fills in like their thing so that it's actually personalized to them, that kind of stuff. So even if we don't yet have the tools that are the best for doing that, you should be getting the data now so that when we do have those tools, you can use it, okay? So at the very least, you should be tracking things like, of course, all the normal stuff, what they've bought, how many times they've bought, how much they've bought, when the last time they bought, when the last time they were serviced, last service date. It should be like anything that they told you they're not interested in, anything they told you they're interested in the future for like wish list, that kind of stuff. I mean, just the more, keep as much data as you can. What kind of work do they do? How many kids do they have? What are the ages of their kids? So you know when to talk to them about the family program, right? All that kind of stuff. And other preferences too, like how they want to be communicated with and how they don't want to be communicated with, and we'll get into all that. But customer data is a big one, and I think we drop the ball in that area a lot. And then number 4 of your strategy is your goals and your schedule. If you know what your value proposition is, and you know what your brand message should be, and you know what and you have data on your customers, and you know what your goals and your schedule are, it's really easy then to create a marketing strategy to support those things. Okay? Okay. So best practices. Number 1 purpose per piece. So if you're going to send out an email, don't send an email that's like, do this if you want service, do this if you want to place an order, do this if you want to look at this recipe, do this if you want to, like, it's like you give them all these things. There's like 5 call to actions in one email, okay? All the studies show that your best response is if you keep 1 purpose per email. If we send a content email, again, I know those of you that are on Fast Action, the content email has a lot in it, but it's 1 purpose. It's just to provide value, right? If we're sending a service offer, it's to get them to sign up for service. If we're sending an event invite, it's to get them to come to the event. If we're sending a sale, it's to get them to buy. But we're not sending 1 email that does all of those things. It waters down your call to action. There should be 1 clear call to action. That's actually point number 2. 1 clear call to action per marketing piece, okay? So 1 purpose per piece, 1 clear call to action per piece. The third thing is always test before you send. Like if you're going to create an email and send it out, test it first. Like send it to yourself, check the links, check the layout, make sure spelling's good, like all that stuff, just test it first. There's just too many times that someone's like, it looked fine in the system, and then they send it and something went wrong and it just did not work right. Code can be a weird thing. Just always test it first. Number 4 is, if you're doing longer promos, and when I say longer, I mean like over time. So if you're not working a 3-day or a 1-day event, you're working a 10-day event or a 2-week event. If you're running a sale that's 2 or 3 weeks long. If you're running some sort of like special promo of like, do this and get into a drawing, like a referral promo, like doing referrals for 2 weeks. I'm going to generate referrals, you're going into a drawing. Whatever it is, if it's a longer thing that you're doing, then you need to send marketing more than once, okay? An average of like once a week. So like when people do sales, the sales are usually somewhere between 10 days. I mean, flash sale can be like a weekend or a few days, but most sales are like 10 days or 14 days or 21 days. Most of you probably know, how long do people run sales for in the winter in Cutco?
2 months.
I guess for sure, the email sales usually are at least a month long. Most people are doing it like all of December or part of November into December, right? And they're usually doing catalogs before that, so there's sales going on all the time. But yeah, it's usually like 4 or 5 or 6 weeks for a lot of reps. So if that's the case, you should be sending something out at least once a week. It's the launch to the sale, and then a reminder, and then a reminder, and then a reminder, and then the last chance, depending on how long it is. If it's only 10 days, you could probably just do launch, reminder, last chance. If it's 6 weeks, you're gonna need a lot more, right? What's funny, you guys should know, you almost always get better pop on the reminders. The closer the deadline gets, the higher the response rate usually. But it's funny because you still have to send those first ones for there to be the last ones, right? Don't just wait till the last one. So a lot of people just procrastinate. They just eventually finally do it when they get the email. It's like, there's only 2 days left. Okay, so longer promos, more than one thing. Same for events, by the way. Number 5 is multi-channel approach. You gotta do multi-channels. Email, especially for the big stuff, right? If you're having like your big key events or you're doing a sale, there should probably be emails, there should probably be text marketing, possibly voicemail drop marketing. and possibly direct mail marketing. Why do you guys think a multi-channel approach makes a difference? Any ideas? Brand awareness. Because traditionally, in marketing and advertising, by the way, the more touches, the more likely it actually converts, right? So if they saw the billboard and then saw the TV commercial and then got something in the mail and then went to the store and saw the big thing in the store, like it's like the more times they see it, right? For sure. Why else do you think multi-channel approach? Yeah, people respond to different things. Some people will never open an email, but they'll respond to a text. Some people will never, they do not want you texting them. They'll opt out of text immediately, but they love getting something in the mail. They think it's the coolest thing ever, and they keep it. They're the ones that call you 5 years later and go, I still have your catalog from 5 years ago. And you're like, yeah, those prices are way off, but I'm glad you still have it. So people open different things, for sure. The other thing, by the way, is that usually you don't have everything for everybody. Like you may not have a mobile number for somebody, but you have the email. You may not have the email for somebody, but you have the direct mail address, right? The only way you're gonna get to everybody is if you're at least sending something in the thing you have for that person, right? So even if, for example, you were trying to reduce your direct mail budget, because direct mail is usually the most expensive form of advertising, right? Even if you're reducing direct mail, at least send the direct mail out to the people who are not getting text and email marketing at the very least, right? So they get something, right? So they hear from you. So multi-channel approach for sure. Okay, next thing is being intentional. Meaning like, what do you want your brand to be about? One of the things that we do, and so those of you that are on the Vast Action Marketing, you see this a lot, so I apologize that I didn't ask you if you wanted us to do this for you, I just do. But one of the things we have found to be very effective is to constantly be expressing appreciation. Like constantly. I think people appreciate it, right? Like it just makes people feel good. A lot of people don't get appreciation anywhere else, so we put it in everything. It doesn't matter what we're writing an email for, we try to make sure there is a thank you in there about something, right? Thank you for reading this, thank you for your past support, thank you for whatever. But there's always some sort of appreciation. I think it goes a really long way, but that's just something that I've decided that I wanted to be part of our brand that I just kind of leaked into everybody else's brands. Sorry about that, and if you ever don't want that, you could say, take it out of mine, and we would. It'd be weird, but we would. But you gotta be thinking about the other things you want your brand to be like we talked about, and then make sure that you include that as part of your marketing too, or part of the voice. The next thing is consistency. And two things. You wanna be consistent in your outreach frequency, meaning are you sending emails once a week, once a month? How often are you doing it? But it should be consistent. It's not as effective if you're like, I sent an email this month, and then I wait a few months and I send an email, and then maybe a few more months go by and I send an email, and it's just very like sporadic and random, right? It's usually better if it's got a consistent frequency. Same thing with social media, by the way. You probably all know this, but if you're gonna try to do a social media strategy, social media doesn't work at all unless you're consistent. Like very, very consistent, which is why most people don't do it. Because you have to do it like daily consistent, right? But even with other forms of marketing, consistency makes a difference. The other consistency you want is in the messaging. And part of what I mean by that is like, especially with questions, I think your answers need to be consistent. So some of the things that customers reach out and ask you guys, so if people reach out and say, I can't get my cookware to work, these eggs just won't fry, whatever, right? Can't do it. Or I can't get this lid off my pan, we've gotten both those things. Or like, how do I send my knives back for sharpening? Or like how, any of those things, all the questions you get again and again. You should definitely have an email template saved in your system, whatever system you're using, so that when they ask that question, you can just shoot off the answer. You should not be writing it every time. Not only is that inefficient, but also it should be the same answer every time. It should be consistent. And if you have assistants working for you, again, that's why it's even more important to have that, because that way they don't have to come up with the answer. They can just send it out and it's the same every time, no matter which assistant answers the question. That's exactly how it should be. Have you guys ever had somebody where you get a different answer every time? How would that make you feel? Or what do you think about that person? What do you think? Yeah, you're just like, do they even know what they're doing? Like I asked them a week ago and they told me this and now they're saying this. I don't know. It's like, it's just hard to know, right? You want that security, that trust. You're like, I want it to be the same every time. Okay, marketing, so consistency. Next thing is marketing planning. Do it, that's the whole point there. Do marketing planning, which means rather than just doing it last minute, like, oh, I've got an event coming up. I need to get an email out or a text or whatever. Oh, I'm bored. I don't got anything going on this week. Maybe I'll run a sale. Like, it's a little more effective if you can actually plan it so that you're not doing things last minute, okay? Because usually the marketing piece is better if you give it some time to be planned, right? But also, you can put more thought into it and all that kind of stuff. Most people like to do either like campaign or annual marketing planning, but that's mainly because they don't want to think about it again and again and again and again. So this came up when we had CSPs reaching out to us going, I hate thinking about marketing. I feel like I'm thinking about it all the time. I'm constantly doing this thing. I need to send a marketing piece out. I don't want to do it all the time. We're like, cool, let's just do what we do for Josh then, which is we sat down at the beginning of the year, we plan out the entire year of marketing, and then he doesn't think about it ever again, and then we just implement it as the year goes. And they were like, fantastic. So we have a lot of people who do that just because they don't want to have to think about it all the time. They'd rather think about it one time, strategize, make the plan, follow the plan, okay? So really helpful. Next thing is subject lines matter. What I would say about that is clarity over cleverness is preferred, which is not my preference, but that's how it is, so that's what we do, right? I like coming up with fun subject lines with puns in them and all kinds of stuff. But honestly, open rates generally are from clear subject lines where they know what they're opening. If they have no idea what you're talking about, they're less likely to open it, right? Even if it is clever. So there's just all those things. And you can do research online about subject lines. I actually meant to do it, and I just realized I forgot to do it. But I usually try to download all of the emails that go out from our system, Fast Action CRM, each year, so that I can then sort them by like open rates and that kind of stuff and look at which subject lines worked the best. So I'm telling you this now so that maybe one of you will remind me, but if anybody emails me to be like, which subject lines? I will do that and I will send it out to people. I just forgot to do that before this message. So, but if you want to know which subject lines worked best last year, I'm happy to share with you which ones did. Okay, so subject lines. Next thing is, get them to interact with your email. Here's what you have to know. There's this whole thing. I'm also going to say this because I don't have it written down, but I want you guys to know that things are constantly changing online all the time. Google just implemented something else on February 1st where even our whole tech team was like, we're ready, we can't do anything until February 1st, but when it happens, we're here, we're ready, we're going to watch what's going on and see if everything crashes, because we're constantly having to like scramble to handle all the changes that are constantly being made, okay? So, having said that, the reason I wanted you guys to know that is because one thing that really helps you is when the algorithms and the email service providers, they call those ESPs, email service providers, Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo, whatever. But they all have their own algorithms and bots and programming and all that stuff. They watch for interaction between your email address and your customer's email address. So like if you can get a customer to respond to your email, it increases your sender reputation for that email service provider, okay? So that's where like, whether it's clicking, like responding is probably better, clicking, any interaction is good. But that's why sometimes when we send a content email where it's just value, so like this month it's garlic, right? We're like garlic recipes, how to smush garlic, how to do all this stuff. Sometimes you just ask a simple question like we've done in the past where it's either like, hey, just reply to this email with your favorite thing that you put garlic in, or your birthday, or your favorite jarred food. We've done all kinds of weird questions before in the past. And oftentimes when we do it, we're like, anybody that responds is going into a drawing for a free piece of cacao. All you gotta do is respond and tell us your favorite thing, right? The whole point is we just want them to respond. That is all that's about. Make it as easy as possible and get them to respond. Because if you can get them to respond. So this, to your question, Josh, if I'm with a new customer, I'm going to cover this in a second too, but one of the first things I would probably do is send them an email. Like if I could and you had time, and I know you don't always have time in an event, but if I'm staying in an event, we're wrapping up the order, I'm getting my contact in their phone, all that stuff, I might even right at that moment have a template that's in my CRM for brand new people that's like, oh, so great meeting you today, whatever. And I'd be like, hey, I'm going to send you an email right now. Send. And I'd be like, can you please just go in because I want to make sure the email's working. If you could just respond to me and let me know you got it, that'd be great. That would be great to do because then immediately, and then you could be like, and save me in your contacts.
And is it best to send that through the CRM?
Yes, I think if you want it to continue to deliver well later, because most of the emails you're going to send are going to be from the CRM, that's why I would do it from the CRM. Because it's likely it might even go to their junk folder the first time. If you're not in their system yet, they've never gotten an email from you yet, it's coming from the CRM. That's why it'd be good if we're there with them to be like, cool, check your junk. Okay, cool, yep, mark it as saved, awesome, and it'd just be good to do, right? So that's not something I had in my notes, but that would definitely be a great idea. Question?
So, real quick, we're talking about the data that we don't have
Yes.
for customers.
Mm-hmm.
So, good idea
how to get it.
Well, I was thinking you just combined the two, that what you just said, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I know you guys are big on like birthdays and stuff. Mm-hmm. That's a good thing, so we can, so are those the kind of questions that you ask to get responses to instead of?
Yes. Yeah, totally.
To build your, okay.
Absolutely. That's where I'm glad you pointed that out. I don't ask birthday every time because we have done it, like we'll do it every so often, right? To get their birthdays, because we do want birthdays on file. We recognize birthdays and wedding anniversaries and all kinds of stuff. So I would say if you can ask for data that's going to be useful, because we've even done things in the past where it's like, hey, reply with like the next 5 things are on your future wish list or whatever, just whatever it is. And it's just good stuff. You can get stuff like that that's actually more helpful for future marketing too than just being like, what's your favorite way to eat corn, right? But either way, if I run out of questions that are like important, I'm still just asking regular questions, right? Okay, so get them to interact. The next thing is preparing customers. So this is kind of what we were just talking about too. This will also be part of the answer to your question, Josh. Some people call it the famous let go. Does anybody in here know the famous let go? Can you do the famous let go? No? Okay. Philip's awesome, so I thought maybe he could do it. But I don't have it memorized. But a lot of people have what they call the famous let go. Josh, I don't know if that's a Josh Muller term, but whatever. He teaches it. And it's basically the very last thing you say to customers when you're done with your interaction. Okay? And so it could be on the phone, it could be in person at the booth, it could be whatever. And essentially what it is you again want to like reaffirm their decision to buy Cutco, make them feel good about that, right? Express appreciation, that's really important, like said to us. But also set up their expectations for what's going to happen moving forward. Your marketing will be so much better if they're expecting it. Right? So if you say to them, like whoever it is, and however, everybody can say their own thing based on what you're actually going to do. So the people that are on the monthly content marketing will say that. They'll go like, hey, by the way, moving forward, here's what's going to happen. And they'll just explain it like, I'm going to send you an email once a month that's a user guide, recipes, all kinds of cool stuff. It's not asking you for anything. It's just to help you get to know your Cutco better, get the most out of the investment you just made. Right? And then they say like a few times a year, if there's a sale going on, I'll let you know. So if you want to add on, you know when prices are better. Right? When there's a sale going on. A few times a year, if I'm in your area for sharpening, for the free sharpening we talked about, I'm going to let you know that too. So, and then that would be a really easy way to say, what is your best email if you haven't gotten that yet? And then be like, in fact, right now, I'm going to go in and send you a really quick email as an introduction just to make sure I've got the email address right and it's working, and that we make sure it lands in your inbox and that you do the whole thing of like, whatever. But setting up their expectations so they know what to expect from you. And then if you're going to be texting, you should tell them that too. In fact, once in a while, too, I'll also let you know by text. Not everybody's really great at email, so I also usually let people know by text if I'm going to be in their area for sharpening or if there's a sale going on or whatever, and you just let them know, right? And Josh always tells me, like, I'm not going to be annoying, I'm not going to spam you, like, none of that. But I just want to make sure that you can always get a hold of me if you need to, that you always have my information, that kind of stuff, and you always know what's going on. So that kind of like set them up with the expectations. That really helps as well. Of course, if you're going to do that, if you're going to give them expectations, you need to follow through. Right? Be a person of your word. They're not going to be very excited if you tell them all these things and they never hear from you again. Right? So make sure that you're doing that too. Okay. The next thing is get your contact saved in their phone. It's more important now than it ever has been before for you to get your contact saved in their phone. So whether you're on the phone talking to them, whether you're texting back and forth, whether you're talking to them at their house, their booth, their office, whatever, the booth, make sure you're getting your contact in their phone. And the reason is because phones are even coming out now where like if you're not a contact in their phone and you ring into that phone line, it will automatically say like possible spam or unknown number, all those things. And I think some phones are actually in the settings, they're set to block unknown numbers before it even rings through. They don't even have the option to answer. Ridiculous. Okay? So you have to get in their phone. So I'm suggesting to you right now that maybe one of the best things you can do for marketing in 2024 is that anybody you talk to, ask them if you're saved in their phone, and if not, get saved in their phone. Whatever it takes, just get in their phone immediately. Okay, next thing is respond quickly when they reach out. This used to not be as big a deal as far as how fast it had to be, but I feel like people are being trained more and more and more for these like immediate expectations, right? Like Prime Now. We want to order it and have it in our mailbox the next day, right? Like we want it fast. So people just expect now that people are going to respond fast. I did a whole talk on this a couple of on like virtual nets ago, so I don't have all the stats in front of me, but I remember it being like a huge percentage of customers really actually expect you to call back within the hour. I'm not saying that that's like even reasonable, just that that's what people are learning to expect these days. So the faster you can respond when they reach out, the better. Even if it's just to respond and say, hey, I'm gonna get back to you tomorrow, right? Like I'm out right now, or I'm doing this right now, or I just got your message, but I'm gonna get back to you. Just let them know, or I'm gonna get back to you in a few days. Whatever it is, but respond to let them know you're gonna respond later if you can't handle it right now, right? Okay, the next thing is keep your list cleaned up. That's really more about prospecting and tends to be more on the business side of things, like realtors, business, that kind of stuff. But if you have a bunch of people in your system who you've been emailing who do not interact, because again, remember sender reputation we talked about, get them to respond. On the negative side, if all of those providers see that you're sending tons of emails out and those people are never interacting, they're not opening, they're not clicking, they're not responding, they're not anything, then that's where it pushes your reputation down, right? God forbid anybody marks you as spam, right? Which is why we don't send to people who don't want to have it sent to them, right? Because being marked as spam, if they click the button that's like, I didn't ask for this, report this person, that's really bad for you. Thank goodness that doesn't come up very often. So you want to keep your list as clean as possible. If someone asks you, this is one of my later points on personalization, but if someone expresses a preference to you, you need to label that in the CRM. We usually use tags. So like if someone says, like we had a customer who said, you can email me, you can text me. She's like, but I'm very concerned about the tree situation. Do not ever send me paper. I don't want anything in the mail, right? She just doesn't want trees to die for paper. So we mark her account, do not mail. We have a lot of do not tags. Do not mail, do not email, do not text, do not contact, do not call, do not voice drop. Whatever they say to us, if they're like, can you please not do that? Then we put that on there, and anytime we pull any marketing lists for our CRM, for any reason, we're always excluding the one, right? So if we're doing a mail list, we're excluding anybody that says do not mail, or do not contact, or whatever. So I really think you have to write those things down, because people notice, right? People notice when you don't keep track of data, and it's not good. So you want to follow their preferences. Also, next thing is track customer preferences. Oh, I just said that. Notes, tags, etc. And then personalize. So here's the big one we talked about. Personalize, personalize, personalize. This is coming up again and again and again. I think the reason is because the more we move into this world we're in of technology, everything, let's make everything automated. Let's make everything AI. Let's just make sure there's no human interaction whatsoever. Let's just have all the machines running everything 100% of the time. Okay? The more that's happening, the more people recognize when you are a human and you talk to them as a human, right? It's funny. I gotta tell you guys, like, and I know I'm just one person, so I'm just like one demographic, right? I'm sure you have some customers like me. The fact that I try to call for customer service and most of the time I get a bot is so annoying. I hate it. I really hate it, okay? And not everybody's like that. Some people probably love bots. I'm not the person that wants to talk to a machine. I want to talk to a person. So I think it really is helpful if you can be that person for your customers, okay? You just want to make sure you're having some human touch in there. I'm fine if you have some things automated, all this stuff, I get it. There's efficiencies we're all striving for, but still some sort of human touch, okay? So here are some things to think about when it comes to personalization. One is using their name. And I know it's a little thing, but that's why we always use the first name merge field. All the stats online show, again, not just Cutco, all the stats online show conversion rates are better when their name is in it. It just is, right? So you can send it out to be like, hey, Cutco fans. Or you could just not even have a name in there at all. I could just open up like most sale emails from every other place in the world where you just get an email and you open it. Your name's not in it or anything. It's just their promo for whatever they're trying to sell, right? Put their name in it. It's a small thing, right? It's so easy to do. Just make sure their name's in it. And that's where in the CRM it matters. I'm mentioning this because I'm in and out of so many CRM accounts because we do support so many reps, and I see people who they're not really thinking about the fact that the marketing is going to come from this too, but in the first name merge field of this, or the first name field of the CRM, they'll have things like Joshua/Josh, right? Or they'll have like Josh/Amy as a husband and wife, right? Just different things instead of not thinking about the fact that when a letter goes out or an email goes out, it's going, hey, Joshua/Josh. Right, which is fine, I guess, but I think that person probably knows there's something weird, right? You're not probably writing, hey, Joshua/Josh, right? Like, it's just filling it. Like, people know, but still, it doesn't hurt to just, try to make sure that data is good, right? Also, write, this is a big one. This I see all of the time. Even in my own team, I have a writer that I finally hired. For the first decade, I wrote everything that came out of Vast Action. That got overwhelming. So then I hired a writer last year. It's been fantastic. He used to work at Disney for like 20 years. He's great. Love it. Quality of the emails, I think, is so much better now with him helping. But I still see him do this all of the time. It drives me nuts. I can't break his habit. And that is people write as if they're talking to a group. Right? So like you'll send out an email and you'll be like, hey everybody, I just want to say thank you so much for helping me hit my goals. I have the best customer list in the world. If all of y'all need anything ever, just let me know. Right? I get it, because in your mind you are writing it to all of your customers. Okay? But to them, they are one person reading it. You really got to try to write your copy in a way where you're speaking to just one person. So even if I'm doing it, I'll say, like, even if I want to recognize the whole group, I will say, hey, Chelsea, because of you, comma, and all my other awesome clients, comma, we did this or whatever. But I'm still always putting it in the, like, you and the rest of my clients, right? It's not just like, because of all of y'all, right? So always talking to them as if they're one person. That makes a huge, huge difference. Okay. Segment your list where possible. The reason segmenting is helpful is because it allows you to personalize the message. So I'll give you an example. In the fall, so for years and years and years, for probably almost 20 years, Josh always had a caller call every single person on his list in the fall when we send catalogs. That got really hard to do when his list got to like 12,000 people, right? The last year we did it, I had 4 full-time callers calling 40 hours a week every day for like 8 weeks of the fall to try to get through the entire catalog list. It's expensive to do that, and it's a lot of time. And we don't even usually make it through the whole list. So a few years ago, we started doing the voice drop system, right? Which is a pre-recorded ringless voicemail. So you record a message, you send it out, it lands in their voicemails. It doesn't even ring their phone usually. They just see that they missed a voicemail. And I have a stat for you later if we get to that part about voicemails and how many people listen to them. But the point is, we sent out a message. Now, what made it even better was when we realized a couple of years ago that we should segment the list based on different reasons and then make the message be personalized to that segmenting variable. So instead of just like, because we used to just take the whole list and you can send it out all at once, but then his phone would be overwhelmed for like 2 days to send out thousands, right? So we had to actually split them up and send like so many this day and so many this day and so many this day. But we used to just segment randomly. Now we segment, like last year, I think it was, we did like everybody who's ever given Cutco gifts. And how do we know they've given Cutco gifts? Because we have a tag for that. When someone buys a gift from Josh for someone else, they get a Gave Cutco Gifts tag, because then we can market to people who give Cutco gifts if we want to, right? Which is great. So we had a Cutco Gifts group. We had a They Already Purchased Once This Year group. We had a we have our gold group and business group. There are just different things. And that way, when he actually records a message for that group, instead of it being one blanket message everybody gets, which is okay, but if you step it up to the next level, you can then say, hey, the last time we talked, you had put a wish list on file of things you thought you might want to get in the future. There's a sale going on right now, so we want to let you know that in case you want to get you a price quote on that wish list that you have on file, kind of thing, right? For people who don't have a wish list on file, they don't get that message. They get a different message. It's a little bit more personalized to them. I think that's actually been making a difference. Josh believes it's making a difference as well. So that's just another way where you can segment your list and then personalize the message based on that, okay? Okay, also, when you use a human touch like we talked about, it sets you apart from the rest of the world, by the way. I believe that. Josh even had a customer say to him, recently, he has a guy apparently who's a customer who spends money on like expensive cars. He said something to Josh like, you know what's weird is that I have spent millions of dollars with my car guy, the same guy that I always buy cars from, for a very long time. And I have never, ever gotten a single greeting card from that guy. And he goes, but I get a birthday card from my knife guy every single year. He is like, I guess I should have been spending millions with you. And Josh is like, yes, you should have, right? So again, it's like just those little things. You're like, wow, a birthday card. Who knew? I can't believe the guy selling cars isn't sending the guy a birthday card. He needs this message. Okay. Also, your own personal notes updates sometimes. Like, it doesn't hurt for you to throw something in there. Like, hey, I completed another semester of school and got a 4.0. If that's what it was. It doesn't have to be that. Could be people send out babies that they have. People send out engagements when they get engaged. Just whatever it is. People send out just other goals they achieve. It doesn't hurt to put a little bit about you in there so that they know, again, they're working with a human. It's not just sale, sale, sale. It's like, hey, we're in a relationship now. Put notes in the CRM so you can pick off where you left off the convo. We have cross-trainers that come in sometimes to cross-train with Josh. And of course, some people cross-train with Josh, like at a booth. They want to go watch him work an event and that kind of stuff. But sometimes people come into our house just to sit and watch him make calls, right, when he's running a sale, because he'll make calls for hours and hours and hours. Again, Josh Muller sold $1 million last year. I got to tell you guys, because I was just happened to be there to witness it, he worked really hard. His goal is not to sell $1 million this year, because he's like, until I figure out how to do it with less work, right? He wants to lean into the business gift stuff a little more so that he can get there again, but with not as much work as he put in last year. It was a lot of work. But I watched that guy make calls for hours and hours and hours, okay? But when people come to our house, and I ask them sometimes after they watch him make calls, I'll be like, what did you notice? Like, did you learn anything? What did you pick up? Whatever. And the answer I get most often is when people say, I can't believe how many people answer the phone, know who Josh is, and then they start their conversation as if they just had a conversation yesterday, even though it was years ago, because Josh has all the notes in his CRM, so he'll be like, hey, the last time we talked was a few years ago, and you guys were getting ready to go on that trip to blank. How was it? Or whatever it is, right? But just something. He keeps the notes so that when he talks to people, he can actually talk to people, right, about what's going on in their lives. It's amazing. So many customers are like, Josh, how do you have such a good memory? He's just like, I take really good notes, right? He's honest about it, but people notice for sure. So, and my next point, which goes with that, is build rapport. I also noticed, sorry, I will get, right after this, I'm going to answer your question. I do notice that, like, when I used to make calls as a rep, I would just go straight to business. I think in my mind, I was like, I'm bothering them, I'm bugging them at their time, so I'm just going to get through this quick and, like, not take up too much of their time and all that stuff. I watched Josh do it, and he's like, I've come to realize, actually, it's a better strategy once you get them on the phone, because how hard is that sometimes, right? Get them on the phone, talk to them. Like, just actually build rapport again. Like, his calls are like, rapport, 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 rapport. Okay, now we'll get into business. And sometimes those calls are long, but sometimes those calls are $10,000 calls. I watched him make his $10,000 or $15,000 sale that actually put him over $1 million this year. And that customer was very excited. She kept putting it off. She kept calling every few days. And that day she called and she's like, how close are you? He was like, I'm only 10 grand away. And she's like, I think I'm going to spend that. And he's like, you're going to be the one to put me over. She's like, I know. She's been waiting for that, essentially, right? Like, that's what she wanted. So, for sure, build rapport with people, right? Okay, next thing is be a person of your word. We talked about that. So when you say you're going to do drawings, so any of you that have had an event email go out that Vast Action made, you probably know that one of the main things we promote with events is come to the booth to put your name into a drawing for free Cutco. We find that to be very effective because we don't want to just pull people to the booth who think they want to buy something. We want to go back to our brand new rep days when we called people and they said, sure, you can come over, but I'm not buying anything. And you're like, cool, right? And then they buy, usually anyway, right? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But for me, it was usually a yes. Same idea. You want to be like, don't worry. You don't have to buy anything. Come to the booth. Get your name in the drawing for free Cutco. Say hi. And then when you get them there, that's when you talk to them and then you show them stuff. And they're like, oh, I didn't know you had blue shears. Okay. So same idea. Get them there. But if you're going to promote drawings, you have to do them. Right? You got to be that person that actually does it. If you're always promoting drawings, but they never actually see anybody winning drawings, they likely will just not believe that you actually do drawings, right? So we always like do a video of the drawing, draw their names, like, and then tell them who won, and then we email them all that stuff. But we send that video out to everybody. We don't just send it out to the people who win, right? So that everybody can see we do drawings. So if you're going to do that kind of stuff, if you're going to say you're going to do it, for sure do it. Customer service, outreach, sharpenings, whatever you say you're going to do, for sure do. By the way, you might get to a point in your business where sharpening changes. So Josh used to always promote what most reps are taught to promote. I'll come to your house and sharpen anytime you want for free, right? And then you get to a point where you have 10,000 customers and you're like, I can't get to everybody's houses. I now use the service event program where they come to me, right? Because I have to. I don't have the efficiency to see everybody. But to retrain customers, it's that whole concept again. You guys train your customers with the way you interact with them. If you're the person who is always rock bottoming, dollaring your orders, right? If you're like, I'm gonna make it as cheap as I can possibly make it to get them to buy this Cutco, and you do that for everybody all the time, You will be known as that by your customers. They will not buy full price from you because they'll be like, no, I always get a really, really awesome deal from you. I want 30% off, right? You can't train people that way, right? It's better actually to just run the sales a few times a year, but not necessarily give them those kind of deals all the time, because otherwise, what's the point of responding to your sale if they can just get that anytime, right? You train your customers with the way you interact with them. So even if you started off saying, I will come to your house to sharpen anytime you want, if that's still cool, that's fine. But when you get to a point where you can't do that anymore, you're gonna have to retrain your customers again, which we had to go through on both of those accounts. Josh used to be rock bottom dollar guy. He is no longer that guy. Josh used to be, I will come to your house anytime you need it. He is no longer that guy either. He will help them get sharpening one way or the other, but it may not be him going to their house, right? So you just have to think about those things that you wanna promote and make sure that whatever you're doing consistently, right? You're training your customers on that. Greeting cards, thank you cards, birthday cards, that kind of stuff. I think all that stuff's cool. You don't have to do any of that stuff. We do that stuff. People notice it. We've had people comment on it. I think there are some people. Here's what I haven't said about marketing that I want to say. No matter what you guys do, by the way, you're never talking to everybody, right? It's like, you're going to do the best thing you can do to try to get the most response from your entire list, but you have to go into it knowing you're not going to reach everybody. Not everybody cares about your goals. Some do. Not everybody cares about getting a birthday card. Some really do. Some people don't care about text at all. Some people love text. Some people will never check an email. Some people live by email. We have a customer who told us recently that part of the highlight of her month every month is getting our newsletter. She's like, I look forward to it. I read the whole thing. It's one of the highlights of my month. I kind of felt bad for her at the time, right? Because I'm like, I'm sorry. But I'm glad that she likes the newsletter, but still, right? So everybody's different. You just got to do the best you can do, knowing you'll reach some and you won't reach others, and everything reaches people differently, and different timing reaches people differently. They may not open your email this time. They might open the last reminder, the last chance, and they might buy then. You just don't know. You just got to do your best, and just know that you're not going to reach everybody every time. Track things for them. One thing Josh does that's really good is that people who do buy Cutco gifts, not only do they get that tag in our system, they gave Cutco gifts, but they also, we also track who they bought for and what they bought them. Because he noticed that he would have people come back every Christmas or whatever, right? And they'd be like, I totally don't remember what I gave that person last time. How do I buy him something again when I don't even know what they got last time? He's like, I got to solve this problem. So he just started tracking it for everybody. And now he tells everybody that. He's like, don't worry, I'm tracking it for you. And they're all like, great. And then every year he gets on the phone with those people. He's like, cool, this is what you got them last year, the year before, this is what everything they have. Cool, here's my next suggestion based on what they already have. And it's like a simple, quick close. And people love it. Okay, so just tracking that stuff. And at the highest level, last point on this best practices list, this is something almost no one does. Only a few people do it, but I'm going to mention it just in case. At the very highest level, if you can, you should track your results for marketing, right? And I mean more than just opening up your email stats. I mean, like, we have a spreadsheet where we track every single order. Right now we do it for Josh and Brandon Brown, because they're the only two people who get us every single order. Soon to do it for Liz. She's on that train. We're building her stuff right now. But that is, they send us the information for every single order they get, and then we track it so that they can, at the end of the year, they can actually look and see how much sales they got from every single marketing piece or event, past customer versus new, realtor versus residential versus business, booth versus phone order versus web order versus, right? Like all that stuff. That's pretty high level. But when you get to that point, if you can track that stuff, that'll inform your decision-making on your future marketing strategies based on what's working best, right? So it's not bad to do. Okay, I'm so sorry. I never did ask you what your question was. I just realized. What was your question?
So my question is what is the best way to put that data into CRM? Like right after you talk with the customer, just dump it all in there and create a...
Great question. And I'm just realizing, too, this will help finish answering Josh's question, right? So there is onboarding. It's one of the other parts of my notes. But there are people who have like specific onboarding emails for certain things. So some people have a thank you email that is just for brand new people, brand new to Cutco, brand new to them, right? Some people have a thank you email specifically for a repeat customer who's already bought from them once before, so they're not getting the same thank you email they got last time kind of thing. Like, there's all kinds of stuff you can do. With products, for sure, there's onboarding. Cookware is a really important one. If you're going to sell cookware, you should probably create some emails of like, here's how to use the cookware. We have an 8 email drip that people can buy but it basically drips out an email to them once a week or so on how to use it, because we had so many people saying, I'm going to send my cookware back because I just can't use it. I'm sure it's great, but I suck at it, so I'm going to send it back. And we were like, no, don't send it back. Let me send you an email first. And then we'd send them videos on how to do stuff, and then they go, oh, okay, I get it now. Yeah, I'll keep it. Josh's cookware cancellations went to 0 basically for a few years after he started using that drip. So there are some onboarding things like that. Business for sure, Josh. So business gifts have their own thing, right? Most people, if it's a business prospect, they go on to a prospect drip. If it's a business client, they go on to a client drip. They're not super different, but they are different in the way they're messaged. And the client drips mostly to just stay in touch and then also keep them aware of the different ways to use the gifts and different ways they can use future gifts if they want to buy more kind of stuff, whatever. Lots of different stuff. So here's what usually happens. And I say that because I wanted to answer your question too. And we can talk about that in more detail personally if you want. But everybody has a different system, and it depends on whether you're doing it yourself or whether you have an assistant doing it. So for years when Josh did it himself, what he did was every Monday he had a block in his schedule of like 3 hours every single Monday, the same time, and those 3 hours were always his admin hours where he would take all the orders from the week before, everything he had written down in his calendar and his notes, on order forms, wherever it was, and he would just sit down and we just do his admin in his CRM. Like that's how it started, right? But when it got to a point where Josh was too busy, and so we hired assistants to do that kind of stuff so he could focus on the sales, then we just had to create the system for assistants. So now Josh's system is, he still uses paper orders, and mainly because he takes so many notes. You don't have to. It could be a note in your calendar. It could be a note on a separate piece of paper. Some people have like a note on their phone. They'll pop open the note. They'll write down all the notes they want to think about for that person at the end of the demo or whatever. And then they just keep that note running. And then once a week, they'll send that to their assistant. And their assistant will put all that stuff in the CRM, right? Josh uses paper order forms. He scans every single thing with all the notes on it, sends it to the assistant on our team, who then takes all that information, processes the order, puts it in the CRM, that kind of stuff. So I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it. There is just it needs to be systematic and it needs to be the same every time so that you're not forgetting and so that whoever you're having do it for you knows exactly what to do with it every time.
So he does that, he goes with the customer? Like as
Yeah,
part of them?
absolutely.
All that notes?
And then after they leave, if he wants to take more, he'll take more after they've walked away or after he's done with the appointment or whatever. But yeah, because then even for us, by the way, because when we schedule Josh's service event appointments for him, our team does, once the appointment is scheduled, they go into the CRM and they pull all of those notes. It's like, when's their last service date? Do we have their anniversary and birthday on file? Do they have a working email or text number on file? Like any notes they have, what's their wish list? What do they already own? We take all of that stuff and we put it in his calendar on that day for that person. And so as he's running service events, he's looking every single time and reviewing all the notes, which he could do in the CRM, but it's just more concise in his calendar. Plus sometimes access to internet's not always great at hotels. So he'll open his phone, check his calendar, get all the notes, and be ready to go as soon as that person walks in with, again, knowing right where you left off the last time.
Does the customer see those notes?
No, but if they wanted to, we would show that to them. There's nothing bad in there that would but they don't. But like I said, they ask a lot of times, like, how do you remember all that stuff? And he'll just be like, I take good notes.
Email will be attached to like the notes section on the calendar.
No. Did you have another question?
Yes, so let's say they walk away, he has all those notes. Monday comes, so he creates a profile for them on the CRM?
Oh,
or does he
yes.
wait till the order process to create?
Great question. So back in the day, we would do it immediately. But now that we have data feeds, right, and the data doesn't feed, if you guys don't know, data feeds after the order ships, so it's different for everybody. You might take an order today and it ships out 2 days from now, which means it feeds out the third day to your CRM, or it could take 3 weeks to ship, in which case it feeds in 3 weeks and a day after. Whatever day the order ships on Vector Connect, it feeds into your CRM the evening of the next day, because that's the trigger that Cutco put into place with shipping. So only status every order goes through. So it did create the conundrum of now we actually have a system, and I really don't want to overwhelm you guys, but I'm going to say this, okay? We have a system where like a set of orders comes in that's going to get processed today. We still call it Rolo. We Rolo the orders, and as soon as we Rolo the orders, yes, Judy, I will get to you in 1 second. As soon as we Rolo the orders, we actually put then those orders in a digital file in our email. We have a running file, so like usually 2 weeks out, because usually 2 weeks is enough time for it to feed in most of them. You could do 3 to be safe. So we have like whatever today is, the 5th or 6th, so we have like a 2/12 file, and then we have like a 2/19 file, and then whatever it is. So we put it in whatever file it would go into that's like 2 or 3 weeks out, and then when that day comes, we also have a project list where we keep track of those orders that are also in that file. But anyway, we're very organized. And then when that day comes, they go to that folder, open up that file, and they go and take it all into the CRM because we are waiting for it to feed in because we don't want to like duplicate the work, right? But it's good and bad. I love the data feeds. They're not perfect. Nothing is perfect. So I wish they would come a little sooner, but it still helps. Like not having to enter that order information is great. Plus, if you guys didn't know, order type feeds in. So right now, if you're not doing this and you're in the CRM, you should be like each person should be typed, right? It should either be residential, business, or realtor, and it should be prospect or customer. So each week or month, if you wanted to, you can run a query that just says who does not have a type. Right? That's essentially the query. Who does not have a type? And then you can go order type as a second part of the query. Order type is realtor, for example. And if that's the case, you can update those all globally in a second to realtor and then run who has a business order on file without a type designated, business, and then you do everybody else because if it's not business or realtor, it's residential. And so it's a really easy way to globally update. I just wanted you to know that even though that may not make sense right now, I can go through it in detail with any of you individually anytime. Judy, what was your question?
I just had a quick question. You were saying, I really like the idea that send them a new customer template when they're in front of you. Let's say they just bought
Yeah.
that, and then you send it to them so that way it builds your email invitation, and then have them reply. So
Yep.
build that. But what about? But doesn't that create more work? Now you're creating a new account before the orders leave you.
Oh.
So, and then,
Good point, Judy. Yeah.
yeah.
No, you're right. So, and this is where I'm going to go back and say, so for years we didn't actually put it in the CRM right away. Because Josh switched from sending his thank you emails from Vector Connect from the CRM instead, right, when we process orders, we actually do as a team now go in and only enter the first name, the last name, the email address, and the zip code, and then send the email right away. I forgot we had made that change, and mainly we made that change because we wanted to be able to get emails out immediately. However, what you have to know will happen, this is what you guys should know. When data feeds feed into the CRM, what it's looking for is the customer number. So like that number Cutco assigns, it's like AE725 whatever, like it's 8-digit number I think. It's looking for that. If it finds that number, it will update that account, right? Put the order on that account, all that stuff. If it doesn't find that number, it doesn't think that customer exists yet, which is why it creates a new account. So if you are going to do what we do, which is put Josh's customers in there pretty much immediately when we need to send them an email, then we also know that we are going to also run duplicate searches every month to merge the ones that we have to merge, which is kind of a pain in the butt. But again, like I said, it's like everything has got good and bad, right? Love the data feeds. It does create some extra work in other ways, but for us, for some people, for a lot of the realtor reps who wanted to get emails out immediately, they either don't use data feeds or they are just constantly cleaning up duplicates, which kind of sucks. If you had the time to go and get the customer number from Vector Connect like the day it ships and put it in the CRM, then it wouldn't create the duplicate. But who has time for that, to do that every single day? Question?
To that end, like the end goal of that is obviously like my sender email is algorithm on the email. So could I not just be sending them like a personal email from my account?
I know, and that's the question. I think it's still helpful to do that. I don't know if it's as helpful to your future CRM emails to not do that, but I think it doesn't have to be immediately either. Again, if you're doing the right thing with setting up the expectations, you could probably easily say to them like, hey, in a couple of weeks once your order ships, once your order ships, I'm going to send you an email, just reminding me of all the ways to contact me, that you can contact me if you want to or whatever, that kind of thing. You could say that and then just set emails to go out, like go in and see what fed in, send emails out, whatever. You could do that and ask them to respond. You could kind of set up the expectation. I feel like if you do it right with them, they're more likely to do it right away. But, you just have to figure out how you want to do your workarounds. Everybody works a little bit differently, so I can give you what common things are. At the end of the day, you have to just decide, what do you want to do? What do you have time for? What do you want to have help for? Like, what's more important to you on all those different choices that you have? And then you set it up. And just know it'll always be changing and evolving. You'll get to another point in your business where you'll be like, this has been working for a while, but now I'm going to do it this way. And you'll transition a little bit. And that's okay. We're all learning and growing. Things are changing all the time. I know we're gone out of time, but I'm happy to, I'll keep going until more people show up, I guess, and kicks out.
That's me right now.
Yeah, okay, perfect, Dave, sorry. Do I have time for one more question, or okay.
Real quick, so you mentioned earlier in the CRM not to put the husband and wife in the first name.
No, we do, but we just do it as Josh and Amy.
So you can do that and when you send an email still.
Yes, and just so you guys know, I don't think customers care at all. So like if Josh gets an email that says Josh and Amy, he doesn't care. Even in texting, we have it like that sometimes where we'll send a text to the wife and it'll say like Joe and Marie. They don't care at all. I've never found anybody to care. But I'm just saying like do it in a way where it looks all right. So it doesn't say like Josh/Amy. It'd be like, Josh? Yeah. I'm glad you clarified that though. I didn't realize I made that confusing. Okay, guys, I hope that was helpful. We're doing this again tomorrow, so and I know you guys probably aren't coming back for a second time, but if any of you have specific questions, if you want to come back, you're welcome to. If you have specific questions, just grab me, find me. I'm happy to just help you guys out. I didn't even cover the whole second half of my sheet, so sorry about that. But hopefully you got some helpful stuff. Thanks, Dave.